Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever found yourself saying yes when your heart was screaming no? Have you ever gone out of your way to please others, only to feel invisible, undervalued, or even taken advantage of? If so, you're not alone. Many of us confuse kindness with self-sacrifice and politeness with silence. But today, I want to share with you an important truth. Kindness without boundaries is not kindness. It is self-erasure. Being kind doesn't mean being a doormat. True kindness includes respect for yourself, just as much as for others. And that's where the art of assertive kindness comes in. Assertive kindness is the ability to express yourself with honesty, respect, and compassion, without crushing others and without betraying yourself. It is speaking your truth firmly but kindly. It is helping others, yes, but not at the cost of your dignity, your time, or your peace of mind. Think about it. When you constantly agree to things you don't want, when you swallow your opinions to keep everyone else happy, when you allow others to cross your boundaries without consequence, you teach the world how to treat you. And unfortunately, the world will keep taking until you finally decide to draw the line. So how do we stop being doormats and start practicing assertive kindness? First, know your worth. You are not here to be liked by everyone. You are here to live authentically. Confidence in your value allows you to stand tall without apology. Second, learn the power of no. Saying no does not make you rude, selfish, or unkind. It simply means you are choosing what aligns with your values and energy. A no to others is often a yes to yourself. Third, communicate clearly. Assertiveness is not aggression. You don't need to yell, insult, or dominate. Instead, use calm but firm language. I can't take this on right now, or I appreciate your view, but I see it differently. Clarity reduces resentment and builds mutual respect. Fourth, practice self-respect daily. If you don't honor your own boundaries, no one else will. Protect your time, your energy, and your mental peace as treasures. Because they are. And finally, balance compassion with strength. Assertive kindness means you can still be gentle, understanding, and empathetic without abandoning yourself. You can offer a helping hand without allowing others to walk all over you. Remember this, when you stop being a doormat, you don't become cold or unkind. You become authentic. And authenticity is the highest form of kindness because it allows you to give freely, without resentment, without exhaustion, and without losing yourself in the process. So let us stop confusing kindness with weakness. Let us practice the art of assertive kindness, where respect flows in both directions, because when you honor yourself, you teach the world to honor you too. Know your worth. At the very heart of assertive kindness lies one unshakable truth. You must first know your worth. Without a strong sense of your own value, no amount of strategies, techniques, or polite phrases will save you from being walked over. People can only respect the boundaries that you believe you are worthy of enforcing. Think about it for a moment. When you undervalue yourself, you automatically accept less than you deserve. You might say yes to tasks that drain you, tolerate words that belittle you, or stay silent when you should speak up. Why? Because deep inside, you've convinced yourself that your voice, your time, or your feelings matter less than others. And when you consistently treat yourself that way, others follow your lead. Knowing your worth is not arrogance. It is not about thinking you are better than anyone else. Instead, it is about recognizing that you are equal. Your needs, feelings, and dreams hold the same importance as anyone else's. This understanding is what shifts you from being a passive doormat into a person who walks with quiet confidence and authentic kindness. But how do you begin to know your worth? It starts with self-awareness. Ask yourself, what do I truly value? What behaviors do I find unacceptable? Where have I been betraying myself just to keep the peace? Often, we ignore these questions because they force us to face uncomfortable truths. For example, maybe you realize you've been allowing friends to constantly cancel on you last minute, yet you never confront them. Or maybe you see that you're always the one staying late at work, while others go home on time. Self-awareness shines a light on the areas where you've been sacrificing your worth for temporary approval. The second step is self-respect. Once you identify your value, you must protect it. Self-respect means refusing to shrink yourself to fit into others' expectations. It means being willing to lose people who don't respect your boundaries rather than lose yourself in the process. That can feel scary, but let me remind you, the right people, those who truly appreciate you, will never require you to erase yourself to keep their love. Another important part of knowing your worth is shifting your inner dialogue. Many of us carry voices from our past, perhaps parents who said, "Don't be difficult," teachers who favored silence, or peers who dismissed our opinions. These voices may have taught us to equate compliance with kindness. But you have to rewrite that script. Instead of saying, "I don't want to upset anyone," tell yourself, "My feelings are valid too." Instead of thinking, "I'm being selfish," remind yourself, "I'm honoring my limits." Your internal dialogue shapes how you show up in the world. Finally, knowing your worth empowers you to show kindness from a place of strength, not fear. When you are secure in yourself, your kindness becomes a gift, not an obligation. You help others because you choose to, not because you're afraid of rejection. You listen, support, and care, but you no longer bend until you break. This is the essence of assertive kindness, a kindness that flows from self-respect, not self-erasure. Let me leave you with this. If you don't see your own value, the world will mirror your doubt back to you. But when you stand in your worth, you give others permission to meet you with respect. You stop being a doormat, and you start being a person whose kindness is powerful, intentional, and unshakable. The power of saying no. One of the hardest words for many people to say is a simple two-letter word, no. Yet, it is one of the most powerful tools we have in protecting our time, energy, and self-respect. Why do we struggle so much with saying no? Often, it's because we fear being seen as rude, selfish, or unkind. We worry that people will get upset, reject us, or think less of us. So instead of saying what we really feel, we nod politely, smile, and agree even when our heart sinks, even when our body feels drained, even when our spirit says, "I can't handle this." But here's the truth. Saying yes when you want to say no is not kindness. It's dishonesty. It's betraying yourself for the comfort of others, and over time, that false yes breeds resentment, frustration, and burnout. Ironically, the very kindness you're trying to protect ends up poisoned by bitterness. Saying no does not mean you are cruel or unhelpful. In fact, it is one of the kindest things you can do, for yourself and for others. Why? Because every no you say to something that doesn't align with your values or energy is a yes to something that does. It is a yes to your peace of mind, a yes to your family, a yes to your health, a yes to your dreams. And when you honor yourself first, the kindness you extend to others is more genuine, more joyful, and more sustainable. Let's think of an example. Imagine a colleague asks you to take on extra work when you're already drowning in your own tasks. You feel guilty saying no, so you agree. Now you're stressed, overwhelmed, and secretly frustrated with both them and yourself. But if you had said, "I'd love to help, but I can't take this on right now," you would have been truthful. They might have been momentarily disappointed, but in the long run, they would respect your honesty, and you would respect yourself. The problem is that many of us treat no as if it requires an apology or a 10-minute explanation. It doesn't. A respectful no can be short and simple. "Thank you for thinking of me, but I can't commit to this. I appreciate the offer, but I'll have to pass. That doesn't work for me right now." Notice how none of these responses are harsh, but they are clear. This is what assertive kindness looks like. You're being considerate without betraying yourself. Of course, practicing the power of no requires courage. At first, you might feel uncomfortable. You might even face pushback from people who are used to your constant yes. But remember this, every time you say no, you are teaching others how to respect your boundaries. And the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. There is also something liberating about realizing that people's reactions to your no are not your responsibility. If someone values you only when you say yes, that is not respect. That is convenience. The people who truly care about you will understand, adjust, and even admire your ability to honor your own limits. So, let me remind you, no is not rejection, it is redirection. It is you guiding your energy toward what truly matters. It is not a wall to keep people out, but a gate that protects your peace inside. When you learn the art of saying no with assertive kindness, you stop living on other people's terms and start living on your own. And that, my friends, is where your true power lies. Communicate with clarity and respect if knowing your worth gives you the foundation, and saying no gives you the courage. Then clear and respectful communication is the bridge that carries your message to others. Without it, your boundaries remain invisible, your needs unheard, and your voice drowned in silence. The truth is, many of us struggle not because we lack opinions, but because we lack the skill or the confidence to express them clearly. We hope others will just know what we feel or need, but here's the hard reality. Unspoken expectations are almost always unmet expectations. If you don't communicate clearly, people will continue to cross your boundaries, not because they are cruel, but because you never drew the line in the first place. Now, when I talk about assertive communication, many people picture something harsh, blunt, or even aggressive. But assertiveness is not about raising your voice or dominating others. Assertiveness is the sweet spot between silence and aggression. It is expressing your truth with both firmness and respect. Think of it as a balance. On one end, you have passivity. You say nothing, you bottle up your feelings, and you sacrifice your needs. On the other end, you have aggression. You shout, demand, or belittle, crushing others in the process. But right in the middle lies assertiveness, the ability to stand your ground without stepping on anyone else's toes. For example, imagine a friend who always shows up late when you meet. A passive response would be staying silent while secretly fuming. An aggressive response would be snapping, "You're so disrespectful. You never care about my time." Assertive communication, however, sounds like this: "I value our time together, but I feel frustrated when I'm waiting for so long. Can we agree on being more punctual?" Notice the difference. You're not attacking the person, but you're not letting the issue slide either. You're clear, respectful, and direct. That is the power of assertive kindness. Another crucial part of clear communication is using I statements. Instead of blaming or accusing, which puts people on the defensive, speak from your own perspective. "I feel overwhelmed when I'm given last-minute tasks. I need some quiet time after work to recharge. I'm not comfortable with that request right now." These statements are powerful because they focus on your feelings and needs, not on attacking someone else. It keeps the conversation open instead of turning it into a battle. Equally important is listening with respect. Assertiveness isn't just about speaking up. It's also about hearing others. When you listen actively, you show that respect flows both ways. You might say, "I hear what you're saying, but here's where I stand." This approach validates the other person while still holding firm to your own truth. Now, let's be honest. Communicating assertively will not always guarantee agreement. Some people may resist, some may push back, and some may even test your boundaries, but that's okay. Assertive communication isn't about controlling others' reactions. It's about showing up authentically, with honesty and kindness. Over time, even if others don't always like what you say, they will come to respect you for being consistent, clear, and genuine. Remember, respect is born out of clarity. When you are vague, people will guess, and often guess wrong. When you are clear, people may not always agree, but they will know exactly where you stand, and that is far more powerful than silence or people pleasing. So, practice this daily. Speak your truth, listen with respect, and hold firm without hostility. Because in the art of assertive kindness, clarity is love, and respect is its language. Boundaries protect your energy. If your energy were like money in a bank account, how wisely would you be spending it? For many of us, the answer is painful. We give it away too freely, invest it in people who drain us, and end up with nothing left for ourselves. This is why boundaries are not selfish walls. They are essential fences that protect your most valuable resource, your energy. Let's be clear, without boundaries, kindness becomes exhaustion. You may think you're being generous, accommodating, or supportive, but if you constantly say yes at the expense of your well-being, you're not actually being kind. You're burning yourself out. And a burned out person cannot give genuine kindness. All they can give is resentment wrapped in a forced smile. Boundaries are not about pushing people away. They are about protecting what makes you whole. Think of them as a filter. A filter doesn't reject water. It simply ensures that what passes through is clean. In the same way, boundaries filter out what is harmful, overwhelming, or disrespectful, so that your time and energy are used in ways that truly matter. Many people struggle with boundaries because they confuse them with rejection. But boundaries are not rejection, they are direction. They tell people how to treat you, what behaviors are acceptable, and how far they can go. For example, a boundary might look like telling a coworker, "I don't answer work emails after 7 p.m." It might sound like telling a family member, "I'm not available to talk about that topic right now." It might be as simple as choosing not to pick up the phone every time it rings. Each of these small actions sends a powerful message: my time and energy matter. Another important truth about boundaries is this: if you don't set them, someone else will set them for you, and you probably won't like the outcome. People will take as much as you allow them to, not because they are evil, but because human beings are wired to pursue convenience. If you make it convenient for others to take advantage of you, they will, sometimes without even realizing it. Boundaries are the way you teach people how to treat you. But here's the best part. When you set healthy boundaries, not only do you protect yourself, but you also protect your relationships. Why? Because unspoken resentment is the silent killer of love, friendship, and trust. If you constantly give more than you can handle, you eventually explode, withdraw, or cut ties. But when you communicate your limits up front, relationships can grow with honesty and respect. Now, let's talk about the emotional side. Setting boundaries can feel uncomfortable at first. You may feel guilty, worried that you're disappointing others. You may fear being called selfish. But here's the truth: guilt is the price of growth. Every time you enforce a boundary, you're breaking old patterns of people pleasing and creating new patterns of self-respect. Over time, the guilt fades, and what remains is peace, and peace is priceless. Imagine the relief of leaving work without guilt, spending time with loved ones without hidden resentment, or saying no without your stomach twisting in knots. That is what boundaries buy you: peace, freedom, and energy to focus on the things that truly matter. So I leave you with this: your energy is sacred. Protect it as fiercely as you would protect your home, your health, or your loved ones. Because when your energy is guarded, your kindness can flow stronger, purer, and more powerfully than ever before. Balance compassion with strength. Compassion is a beautiful quality. It allows us to connect with others, ease their pain, and show humanity in a world that often feels cold. But here's the challenge: without strength, compassion can be misused. Without boundaries, compassion can become exploitation. And without balance, compassion can turn into weakness. This is why the final step in practicing assertive kindness is learning to balance compassion with strength. So many of us were raised to believe that being good means being endlessly giving, endlessly forgiving, endlessly available. But if your kindness always costs you your peace, then it isn't kindness. It's self-neglect. Real compassion doesn't mean you must carry everyone's burden. It means you offer support while still standing firmly in your truth. Let's picture this balance as two hands. In one hand, you hold compassion, the ability to empathize, to listen, to care deeply. In the other hand, you hold strength, the ability to stand tall, to say no, to protect your boundaries. When you bring those two hands together, you create a balance that is both kind and powerful. Consider this scenario. A friend constantly calls you at midnight to vent about their problems. Out of compassion, you listen, even though you're exhausted. Over time, you grow resentful and drained. That's compassion without strength. Now imagine responding differently. I care about you, and I want to support you, but I can't take calls this late. Let's talk tomorrow. That's compassion with strength. You still show care, but you also protect your well-being. When you balance compassion with strength, you stop confusing sacrifice with love. You stop believing that being kind means being silent, submissive, or endlessly accommodating. Instead, your kindness becomes a choice, not an obligation. You can help others, but not at the expense of yourself. Another important part of this balance is mutual respect. True compassion honors both sides of the relationship. It asks, how can I support you without abandoning myself? And how can we create a connection where both of us feel respected? This approach transforms kindness into something sustainable, not draining. Of course, there will be moments when people test your balance. Some may say, you've changed, or accuse you of being selfish. But remember this, selfishness is taking without giving. Strength with compassion is giving without losing. They are not the same. It takes courage to stand firm while still keeping your heart open. But this is what makes assertive kindness so powerful. It doesn't harden you into coldness, nor does it soften you into weakness. It shapes you into someone who can love without being used, give without being drained, and care without being controlled. Think about leaders you admire, mentors who inspired you, or even loved ones who shaped you. Chances are they were not doormats. They were people who cared deeply, but also commanded respect. That is the balance we must all strive for. So let me remind you, compassion without strength is weakness, and strength without compassion is cruelty. But when you hold both together, you create authentic, assertive kindness, a force that is unshakable, respectful, and transformative, and in that balance lies your freedom. You are free to give without fear, to help without resentment, and to love without losing yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, we began this journey by asking, how often do we say yes when our soul is begging to say no? How often do we confuse kindness with silence and compassion with self-erasure? The truth is, being endlessly agreeable doesn't make us kind. It makes us invisible. But today, we have discovered a better way, the art of assertive kindness. It begins with knowing your worth, because if you don't value yourself, no one else truly can. It grows stronger when you embrace the power of saying no, realizing that every no to something that drains you is a yes to something that sustains you. It flourishes when you communicate with clarity and respect, speaking your truth firmly but gently, without aggression and without apology. It deepens when you set boundaries that protect your energy, ensuring that your kindness comes from overflow, not depletion. And finally, it shines brightest when you learn to balance compassion with strength, offering love and empathy without sacrificing your dignity or your peace. This is not about becoming hard, cold, or unkind. Quite the opposite. Assertive kindness allows you to give more freely, more joyfully, and more authentically, because your giving is no longer rooted in fear, guilt, or obligation. It is rooted in choice, so I leave you with this challenge. Stop being a doormat. Stop confusing silence for kindness and exhaustion for love. Instead, rise into your worth, protect your peace, and let your kindness stand tall with strength. Because when you honor yourself, you teach the world to honor you too. Thank you.